colorblind, and why not mention it? It's a fact, right? When he puts in together his reenactments, why not get accurate depictions? Why? Because he's a devil and he doesn't want you to know. He's trying to hide that history. And the races with which they were most similarity are Professor Huxley's astroloids and Negrotos. Not only is it asserted by him. Now, this is another interesting thing, right? It says here about the dolmens and basically all the different burial stuff that they find in Europe from the medieval times and ancient times, yeah? It says here on page 9, right? The field of stones. It contains rocking stones, standing stones and others, and many of these are covered with marks resembling the curious picture writings found on scattered stones and rocks in British Guyana and other parts of South America. Why? Because the people that were in Europe were Israelites that were making these Neolithic structures, the same as the people that were over there in South America. They were Israelites too. They were keeping the same customs. Now, down here, this is where he says a very interesting thing. He says, the question of the origin of the white races. Basically, how did you, then if this is the case, where did all these Edomites we see in Europe come from? When exactly did Europe become infested with fucking pale skins? If the original peoples were dark, if the dark was dominant, how did this occur? The question of the origin of the white races, which have now long held the supremacy in these isles, because now it's evident the so-called white man has supremacy in Europe. That's why when you say European, people think of white people. But it's not long ago that really you should have thought about black people. But it may be as well to bear in mind that the now familiar theory, the question of the origin of the white races, which have now long held the supremacy in these islands, scarcely enters into present inquiry, meaning these modern day scholars don't want to touch it. These modern day historians don't want to touch it. Why? Because they're going to find out that they're not the original Europeans. Their forefathers came from the Caucasus Mountains, right? And really, prior to that, they were in Rome and different areas in Europe, but only a small amount of them that were ruling. And prior to that, they came up through the way of Macedonia, and prior to that, they were in the land of Edom, and they're Edomites. Which they know they're Edomites. They're Edomites, and the original people of Europe were Japhet, but Jake set up colonies here ever since the days of King Solomon, and before then, really. Scarcely enters into the present inquiry, which has to do more with their colored predecessors, meaning they don't want to come out and have to admit that, yeah, you so-called black people, you was here first. So the next time a fucking cracker comes up and tells you get out of his country, you gotta tell him, hold on, the Roman scribe Tacitus, when he came to Britain during the time of the Roman Empire, he said the people that were living in Britain were swarthy with curly hair, which means dark-skinned. They were dark-skinned with curly hair, man. So where the fuck did you come from? Where's your origins? How the fuck did you get here? How did you end up sitting on the throne, man? Because if the people were dark, that means the kings were dark, the knights were dark. Fucking scum. That's why you don't really like to touch too much on ancient history in Europe. And you like to just say that, oh, they didn't have no money, which the other day they had to admit that they started finding more and more culture here. So they said they were actually more modern than what they first believed. Well, you know what? Because they knew that it was Jake, so they didn't really want to cover it too much. So they say, man, we're just living in huts and weren't doing nothing. No, that's bullshit. They had trade. They had money. They had a law system. They weren't just a bunch of savages before the Romans came. They like to tell you that before the Romans came to Britain, Britain was full of savages. That's a damn fucking lie. There was coins before the Romans was here. Right, now let's deal with Matthew the 13th chapter. Because we read earlier where it spoke about the dark whites. That's him alluding to, you got white people walking around in Britain that they might look like a so-called white man, but actually their lineage goes back to the original inhabitants of the land, which were Israelites. But they've mixed with the white people that have come in, so they look more white now. Okay? But their father's line goes back to who? Israelites. So they're really Israelites, which is going back into the Matthew the 13th chapter. So we're gonna read that. That's how you get guys like Maverick Sabre, man.
Yeah.
Look, man, there ain't hardly no one out there, even among the blacks, that can sing like Maverick Sabre, man.
Yeah,
that dude's got a voice. That dude has a hell of a voice, and he's Irish too. I don't know if you heard him.
Yeah, I've heard
He's got a hell of a voice, man. He better than Jason Derulo and all them fucking dickheads. That dude can sing 20 times better than any of them guys. You got Robin Thicke. You got you had Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
Timberlake, Justin Timberlake. He's of English descent, but he's obviously a Jake, man. He ain't, come on, man. Cry me a river. Come on, man, that's a Jake tune. Hey, that's a Jake tune right there. But you got these guys out there calling themselves Israelites. They don't go in, you ain't gonna see them go into these histories, because if they went into the histories, they'll have to admit that through miscegenation, you're gonna get Israelites that look like so-called white people. Because Jake, first of all, Jake was dealing with white people when we was in rulership. Because why? You had white concubines. We conquered the so-called white men. They were peasants. So Jake, come on, man, Jake's moving through the village and he sees a white peasant woman that he likes, he gonna fuck her, man. And they gonna have a baby, and that baby's gonna come out, could be more dark or more light. That's why you had icons with Jakes that were light-skinned with straight hair or more straighter hair. It was not a complete afro, but it was woolly like King George, but he's really a Jake, but he's mixed, but his seed is of his father's. But then you had a point where Jake was going down. Now if you're a Jake and you can see the climate changing and to be black ain't advantageous no more, what you gonna do? You're gonna get a white woman and hope that your children come out looking more white. And Jake still does that to this day. Look at them Puerto Ricans, man. They tell their daughters, get a white woman. They tell their sons, get a white woman. Why? Because they know it's not advantageous to look how they look. So they want to look like a white man or a white person because they think life is going to be easier on them.
They can be more successful.
That's what Jake was doing. That's why you go into that book, Nature Knows No Color Line and Sex and Race. You got a whole heap of Jakes during the 1800s and the 1900s that were getting with white women so that they could blend in. In fact, I was watching one movie. I know it's a movie, but sometimes movies illustrate a good point where it was like a lot of racism going on in the village, and the local head of the newspaper, it was a white guy, right? You know, when you look at him, you think, oh, this guy's white, right? And then basically, he was accepted by the white people. And he was doing the journalism, and then one guy confronted him. One white guy confronted him and said, look, I know who you are, man. I know your past. You might be able to fool all these other people around here, but I know that you're really a nigger. You just look light enough to pass for one of us. So what? You get less noticed. Like an Italian. But that's just a light-skinned Negro, man. Okay? So them guys will have to admit that. If they go into the history, they'll have to admit that Cornelius had to be an Israelite, and it's totally plausible because there was Jake all up in Rome. Jake coming, because Jake was in Europe anyway. Well, it's just like today, man. What, you could people used to up and root for different reasons, not even just war. Sometimes you had a trade and they needed a certain people of that trade somewhere you can make more money. You take your family and you go there. Why you think we had laws for Israelite foreigners, man? Because if I was a blacksmith and I know that in Tarshish they need blacksmiths and I can get paid 4 or 5 times more because of my skill, well, I'm gonna say, yo, brother, man, we gotta go Tarshish, bro.
People go do that today, man. People do that today. They go over to the States, they go over to China or wherever, Dubai.
Oh yeah, definitely Dubai.
Yeah,
Definitely.
construction and that.
There's Jake over there now.
That's right. You know, to earn the extra bit of money, they'll settle down there. They might
get a woman there.
Yeah, whatever. Get married there,
you know,
whatever,
Jake,
man.
Jake ain't going nowhere. He ain't gonna get a woman there. And then next thing you know, you're living in Tarshish or you're living in Rome.
That's right.
Without even going into captivity. So it's not impossible. You know what I mean? Because we just read about the Iberians that were in Sicily anyway. Sorry, go on, bro.
Oh, no, I was just thinking, you know, he was watching the IPO and it was on the, you know, they had the white girls there, they got cheerleaders, man, they ain't got their own women there no more, man. You know, Jake could be out getting their white women there as well, man, no matter where they are, man. You know? Jake's always gonna get a piece of ass somewhere, man.
So people were all over, man. Jake was spreading out, man.
From verse 24, it says. Yeah. Okay, so Matthew chapter 13, verse 24. Another parable he put forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat.
The field is the world. Bro, go on, read it. Just read it through and then we'll go to when the Lord broke it down.
Okay. And went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst thou not sow good seed in thy field? From whence then have it tares? He said unto them, an enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them.
Yep. Because why? They look the same.
They both grow together until the harvest, and in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn.
The wheat is the elect of Israel, man. Right, so what's that going into? Let's read the breakdown, and then we'll explain it in the terms of what's going on the earth, man.
Okay, and jumping down to verse 36. Then Yahushua sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom.
Israelites, the elect.
But the tares are the children of the wicked one.
That's the wicked one is the so-called white man. Okay.
The enemy that sowed them is the devil.
The so-called white man, okay? Because the word there for seed is sperm. Okay? The sperma. Okay? That's talking about the white man. That's another reason you know the white man is the devil, man.
The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world.
Go on, which we're at the end right now.
And the reapers are the angels.
Yep.
As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world.
Yep.
The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity.
That's right. And that also includes the wicked ass Israelites. They're going to be burnt with the tares. They're tares too, spiritual tares. Now, let's explain this now. What happened is when we went down into slavery, the white man would be popping our women and having babies with our women. But the white man wouldn't then take them babies and raise them as white people. He would leave them among the Negroes. So that if that woman had a son, that son would come out kind of looking like a black man. But it's really a white man. And then he'll be around the slaves and, you know, they'll think he's one of us, and then he will lay down with a black woman, and then so forth and so forth. So you got niggas walking around they're not really niggas, man. They're tears. They're really Edomites, man. But